Welcome to another relaxing journey into the great unknown, as we delve into the perplexing enigmas that have kept humanity awake at night for decades. Tonight, we are taking a closer look at 10 conspiracy theories you should know about. From historical events to modern mysteries, these theories have become cultural touchstones, sparking endless debates and keeping the realm of the unknown alive in our collective consciousness. As we wind down from the day, let's dive into these theories that blend fact, fiction, and everything in between. Let's start with the intriguing tale of the lost city of Atlantis. This legendary island civilization first appeared in Plato's philosophical dialogue and has captured the imagination of thinkers ever since. According to Plato, Atlantis was an advanced society that existed around 9000 BC near the Strait of Gibraltar. However, it was eventually swallowed by the sea after its people angered the gods. While many believe the story to be a myth, some conspiracy theorists argue that it was based on actual historical events. They speculate that the island may have been located in the Mediterranean, North Atlantic, or even Antarctica. Proponents point to Plato's detailed description of the island's geography and culture as evidence that there is more to the story than a simple fable. Next, let's turn our attention to the assassination of US President John F. Kennedy. On November 22, 1963, President Kennedy was shot and killed in Dallas, Texas. The official investigation concluded that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone in the assassination. But conspiracy theories have long held that there was more to the tragedy than a lone gunman. Some believe that the CIA was involved in a plot to remove the president due to his policies, while others suspect a larger government conspiracy. The debate continues to rage, with some believing that the evidence points to a single gunman, while others insist there was a vast conspiracy at play. Moving on, let's discuss the Roswell incident. In July 1947, a rancher in New Mexico stumbled upon what he believed were the remains of a crashed flying saucer. This sparked one of the most famous UFO conspiracy theories of all time. While the military quickly labeled the incident as a downed balloon, conspiracy theorists believe that it was actually a crashed alien spacecraft. They point to eyewitness accounts and alleged government cover-up as proof that there is more to the story. Could this seemingly small-town event have been a top-secret government conspiracy? What secrets might it hold? Let's now delve into the theory surrounding the Illuminati, a purported secret society that is said to control world events from the shadows. Rumors suggest that the group holds immense power and uses it to manipulate governments and economies for its own benefit. While there is no concrete evidence of the Illuminati's existence, conspiracy theorists believe that its members are influential figures in politics, business, and entertainment who work together to further their own interests. The theory has captured the public imagination and has been the subject of countless books, TV shows, and films. Next up is the intriguing topic of Area 51 and the alleged government conspiracy to hide evidence of extraterrestrial life, located in Nevada. Area 51 is a highly classified United States Air Force base that has been shrouded in secrecy for decades. Conspiracy theorists believe that the government is using the base to store captured alien technology and conduct experiments on extraterrestrial beings. The intense secrecy surrounding the base has only added fuel to the fire, leading many to believe that there is something truly extraordinary being hidden from the public eye. Now, let's shift our focus to the infamous MK-Ultra project, a top-secret CIA program that was designed to research and develop mind-control techniques during the Cold War. Conspiracy theories suggest that the project involved unethical experiments on unwitting subjects, including brainwashing, hypnosis, and the use of drugs like LSD. while the CIA officially ended the program in 1973. Conspiracy theorists believe that it continues to be carried out in secret and that the government is still experimenting with ways to control the human mind. Moving on, let's talk about the Bermuda Triangle, a region in the western part of the North Atlantic Ocean where ships and planes have mysteriously disappeared. Conspiracy theories abound, with some believing that the area is home to a giant underwater volcano that periodically erupts and causes ships to sink. Others believe that the strange disappearances are the result of secret government experiments or even alien activity. The Bermuda Triangle continues to be a source of fascination and speculation. Next, let's delve into the depths of the Mariana Trench, a nearly 11,000-meter deep area in the Pacific Ocean. Conspiracy theories claim that the trench is home to a secret underwater base belonging to the Illuminati. It is said that the base is heavily guarded and only accessible through a top-secret entrance that can only be opened using complex codes and ciphers. Could there be a secret base in the darkest depths of the ocean? Finally, let us discuss the enigmatic Paul McCartney and the enduring conspiracy theory that the real Paul was replaced by an imposter in the 1960s. The theory suggests that the original Paul died and was replaced by a lookalike to prevent a media circus. Some believe that clues to this elaborate hoax were hidden in the Beatles' songs and album covers. While there is no concrete evidence to support the theory, it continues to be a popular topic of conversation among fans and conspiracy theorists alike. And with that, we come to the end of our relaxing journey through 10 conspiracy theories you should know about. Remember, dear listeners, these theories serve as a reminder that the world is full of unanswered questions, and that our understanding of history and current events is often incomplete. As you drift off to sleep, let your thoughts wander through the possibilities, but always remember to approach such theories with a healthy dose of skepticism and critical thinking. The moon landing was faked on July 20th, 1969. Humanity achieved one of its greatest accomplishments. Neil Armstrong stepped onto the lunar surface, uttering the immortal words, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." Yet within months of this historic achievement, whispers began to circulate that perhaps what the world had witnessed wasn't quite what it seemed. The moon landing conspiracy theory suggests that the Apollo 11 mission was an elaborate hoax, filmed on a movie set rather than taking place on the actual lunar surface. This theory has persisted for over 5 decades, spawning documentaries, books, and countless internet discussions. But how did such a theory take root, and what keeps it alive in the minds of believers? Let's journey back to 1969 to understand the context in which these theories emerged. The world was in the grip of the Cold War, a tense geopolitical standoff between the United States and the Soviet Union. The space race had become a symbol of technological superiority and national pride. The pressure to succeed was immense, with billions of dollars and America's reputation on the line. The Soviet Union had achieved several space milestones first. The first satellite with Sputnik, the first human in space with Yuri Gagarin, and the first spacewalk. When President John F. Kennedy declared in 1961 that America would land a man on the moon and return him safely to Earth before the decade was out, it was as much a political statement as a scientific goal. conspiracy theorists point to several pieces of evidence that they claim prove the moon landing was staged. One of the most commonly cited is the behavior of the American flag planted on the lunar surface. In the footage, the flag appears to wave, which skeptics argue is impossible in the vacuum of space where there's no atmosphere to create wind. However, the flag's movement can be easily explained by the astronauts manipulating the flagpole and the flag's fabric remaining in motion in the moon's low-gravity environment. Another frequently mentioned point is the quality of the photographs taken on the moon. Conspiracy theorists argue that the images are too perfect, with lighting that seems inconsistent with a single light source, the sun. They point to shadows that appear to fall in different directions and areas that seem illuminated when they should be in shadow. However, photography experts have explained these phenomena through the moon's reflective surface, which bounces light in various directions, and the use of reflective surfaces on the lunar module and astronaut suits. The lack of visible stars in the lunar photographs is another point of contention. Skeptics argue that stars should be clearly visible in the moon's thin atmosphere. However, the camera settings used for lunar photography were optimized for the bright lunar surface, which would naturally wash out the much dimmer stars in the background. The same reason you can't see stars in photographs taken during daylight on Earth. Some theorists have suggested that the entire production was directed by filmmaker Stanley Kubrick, pointing to his expertise in special effects demonstrated in his 1968 film, 2001: A Space Odyssey. This theory gained traction partly due to the film's realistic depiction of space travel and Kubrick's reputation for perfectionism and innovative cinematography. The psychological appeal of the moon landing conspiracy theory runs deep. It offers a sense of exclusive knowledge, the feeling that you've uncovered a truth that others have missed. It also provides a simpler explanation for an incredibly complex achievement. The actual moon landing required the coordinated efforts of over 400,000 people, cutting-edge technology, and years of meticulous planning. The idea that it could all be an elaborate hoax, while requiring its own complex planning, somehow seems more manageable to some minds. The theory also taps into a general distrust of government institutions that was particularly strong in the post-Watergate era, when many of these theories gained popularity. If the government could lie about Vietnam or engage in domestic surveillance, perhaps they could lie about the moon landing too. However, the evidence supporting the authenticity of the moon landings is overwhelming. The Soviet Union, America's primary rival in the space race, monitored the Apollo missions closely and never disputed their authenticity. If anyone had the motivation and capability to expose a hoax, it would have been them. Retroreflectors placed on the lunar surface by Apollo. Astronauts are still used today by scientists, who bounce laser beams off them to measure the distance between Earth and the Moon. Moon rocks brought back by the missions have been studied by scientists worldwide and show characteristics that would be impossible to fake with 1960s technology. Perhaps most convincingly, the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter has photographed the Apollo landing sites from orbit, showing the equipment left behind by the astronauts still sitting on the lunar surface after more than 50 years. As we drift deeper into our exploration of human curiosity and skepticism, consider how the moon landing represents both humanity's greatest achievement and our persistent tendency to question even our most remarkable accomplishments. The conspiracy theory, while unfounded, reflects something fundamentally human: our desire to understand, to question, and sometimes to seek simpler explanations for complex realities. The Apollo missions stand as a testament to human ingenuity, courage, and the power of scientific collaboration. They remind us that sometimes the truth is more extraordinary than any fiction we might imagine. Let your mind wander to that moment in 1969, when hundreds of millions of people around the world watched in wonder as humans first set foot on another celestial body. Whether you believe in the landing
Chapter 2,
or harbored doubts, the JFK assassination represents a pinnacle questions that never sleep. November 22nd, desire to explore beyond the boundaries of our world
Texas,
and reach for the
12:30
stars. p.m. As we prepare to move on
forever
to our
change
next
American
mystery,
history,
take a moment to appreciate
President
the
John
complexity
Fitzgerald
of
Kennedy
human nature. Was struck down
Our
by an
capacity
assassin
for
for
both
both
remarkable
achievement as his motorcade made its way
doubt.
through Delhi Plaza.
Our
need for both wonder, the official investigation,
skepticism,
our ability to reach Harvey
Oswald
while still
acted
questioning
alone,
whether we ever
firing
left
3
3
shots
shots from the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository. Yet in the decades that followed, this conclusion has been challenged, questioned, and dissected perhaps more than any other event in modern American history. The assassination of JFK didn't just kill a president. It shattered America's sense of innocence and security. The young, charismatic leader who had promised a new frontier was gone, leaving behind a grieving nation and a mystery that continues to captivate minds more than 60 years later. As you settle deeper into your comfortable position, let your mind drift back to that autumn day in Dallas. Picture the excitement in the crowds, the brilliant Texas sunshine, the pink of Jackie Kennedy's Chanel suit, and the anticipation of seeing the glamorous first couple. Then imagine how quickly that joy turned to horror, confusion, and disbelief. The Warren Commission, established by President Lyndon Johnson to investigate the assassination, spent 10 months examining evidence and testimony. Their conclusion was straightforward. Lee Harvey Oswald, acting alone, fired 3 shots from the Texas School Book Depository, killing the president and wounding Texas Governor John Connally. But even before the commission's report was published, questions began to emerge. One of the most persistent theories involves the possibility of a second gunman, often referred to as the grassy knoll shooter. Witnesses reported hearing shots from different directions, and some claimed to see suspicious figures near the grassy knoll area of Dealey Plaza. The famous Zapruder film, an 8mm home movie that captured the assassination in horrifying detail, has been analyzed frame by frame countless times, with some observers claiming it shows evidence of shots from multiple directions. The magic bullet theory has become central to conspiracy discussions. The Warren Commission concluded that a single bullet caused multiple wounds in both President Kennedy and Governor Connally, entering Kennedy's back, exiting his throat, then striking Connally in the back, exiting his chest, hitting his wrist, and finally lodging in his thigh. Critics argue this trajectory seems impossible, suggesting multiple shooters were involved. Conspiracy theorists have proposed numerous alternative explanations for who might have been behind the assassination. Some point to the CIA, suggesting Kennedy's plans to withdraw from Vietnam, or his handling of the Bay of Pigs invasion created enemies within the intelligence community. Others theorize about organized crime involvement, noting Kennedy's administration as crackdown on the mafia and his brother, Robert S.'s aggressive pursuit of organized crime as Attorney General. The Soviet Union and Cuba have also been suggested as potential orchestrators, given the tensions of the Cold War and Kennedy's handling of the Cuban Missile Crisis. Some theories even implicate Vice President Lyndon Johnson, suggesting he had both motive and opportunity to orchestrate the assassination for political gain. Jack Ruby's shooting of Lee Harvey Oswald just 2 days after the assassination added another layer of mystery. Ruby, a Dallas nightclub owner with connections to organized crime, claimed he killed Oswald to spare Jackie Kennedy the pain of a trial. But conspiracy theorists saw his actions as silencing Oswald before he could reveal the true scope of the plot. The The psychological appeal of JFK assassination conspiracy theories runs particularly deep in the American psyche. Kennedy represented youth, hope, and change. His death seemed too random, too senseless to be the work of a lone, troubled individual. The idea that such a significant historical figure could be killed by someone as seemingly insignificant as Lee Harvey Oswald challenges our sense that important events must have proportionally important causes. There's also the matter of government credibility. The assassination occurred during an era when faith in government institutions was still relatively high, but the subsequent Vietnam War and Watergate scandal would severely damage that trust. In hindsight, many Americans became more willing to believe that their government might lie to them about significant events. The classification of government documents related to the assassination has fueled further speculation. While most files have been released over the decades, some documents remain partially redacted or classified, leading conspiracy theorists to wonder what secrets they might contain. However, numerous investigations beyond the Warren Commission have examined the assassination. The House Select Committee on Assassinations, which investigated the case in the 1970s, concluded that while Oswald was likely the gunman, there was probably a conspiracy involved. However, they found no evidence implicating the Soviet government, Cuban government, anti-Castro groups, organized crime, or any other group. Modern forensic techniques have been applied to the evidence repeatedly. Computer simulations have shown that the magic bullet trajectory is actually quite plausible given the positions of Kennedy and Connolly in the limousine. Audio analysis of police radio recordings initially thought to provide evidence of a fourth shot has been debunked by more sophisticated analysis. The Zapruder film, while dramatic and disturbing, has been enhanced and analyzed by experts who generally support the single gunman theory. The apparent backward motion of Kennedy's head, often cited as evidence of a shot from the front, can be explained by neurological reactions and the physics of the bullet's impact. Perhaps most telling is what hasn't been found despite decades of investigation by professional researchers, government agencies, journalists, and amateur sleuths. No credible evidence of a conspiracy has emerged. No deathbed confessions from co-conspirators, no smoking gun documents, no forensic evidence that definitively contradicts the Warren Commission's basic conclusions. The enduring fascination with JFK assassination conspiracy theories reflects something profound about human nature and American culture. Kennedy's death marked the end of an era of optimism and the beginning of a more cynical age. The conspiracy theories, in a way, serve as a form of psychological protection. They suggest that such a tragedy couldn't happen randomly, that there must be some larger meaning or purpose behind such a devastating loss. As you contemplate this enduring mystery, consider how our need for meaning and pattern recognition can sometimes lead us to see conspiracies where none exist. The human mind struggles with randomness and chaos, often preferring complex but purposeful explanations to simple but meaningless ones. The truth about November 22nd, 1963, may be simpler and more tragic than the elaborate theories suggest. A disturbed individual with a rifle changed the course of history in just a few seconds. Sometimes the most profound events in human history have the most mundane explanations. Yet the questions persist, and perhaps that is fitting for a president who challenged America to reach for the moon and ask not what their country could do for them, but what they could do for their country. Kennedy's legacy lives on not just in the achievements of his brief presidency, but in the eternal human quest for truth and understanding, even when that truth might be more painful than the alternatives we imagine. As we prepare to explore our next mystery, let your mind rest on the complexity of history and human memory. Sometimes, the most important thing about a mystery isn't its solution, but what it reveals about our deepest hopes, fears, and need to find meaning in a world that can sometimes seem random and cruel. Chapter 3: September 11th, when the unthinkable became reality. September 11th, 2001, a crystal clear Tuesday morning in New York City. The kind of day when the sky seems infinite and possibilities endless. By evening, that same sky would be filled with ash and smoke, and the world would never be quite the same again. The terrorist attacks on the World Trade Center, Pentagon, and the thwarted attack that ended in a Pennsylvania field represent one of the most traumatic events in modern American history. Yet within months of that terrible day, alternative theories began to emerge, suggesting that the official narrative might not tell the complete story. As you relax into your pillow and let your breathing slow, transport your mind back to that morning 23 years ago. Picture the routine of a typical Tuesday. People heading to work, grabbing coffee, checking emails, completely unaware that their world was about to change forever. Sometimes the most ordinary moments precede the most extraordinary tragedies. The 9/11's truth movement, as it's often called, encompasses a wide range of theories and beliefs about what really happened that day. At its core, the movement questions whether the attacks were carried out exactly as the official investigations concluded, or whether there might have been additional factors, cover-ups, or even direct government involvement. The most common version of the conspiracy theory suggests that the September 11th attacks were an inside job, that elements within the US government either orchestrated the attacks themselves or allowed them to happen to justify subsequent military actions in Afghanistan and Iraq. Proponents argue that the Bush administration needed a new Pearl Harbor to implement their foreign policy agenda and expand government powers through legislation like the Patriot Act. One of the most discussed aspects of 9/11's conspiracy theories involves the collapse of the World Trade Center towers. Theorists point to what they claim is evidence of controlled demolition, arguing that the buildings fell too quickly and too uniformly to have been caused solely by the airplane impacts and resulting fires. They cite the presence of what appears to be molten metal in the debris, the speed of the collapse, and eyewitness accounts of explosions heard throughout the buildings. World Trade Center, Building 7, which collapsed later that afternoon despite not being hit by a plane, has become a particular focus of conspiracy theorists. The 47-story building housed offices of the CIA, Secret Service, and other government agencies. Its collapse, which occurred several hours after the Twin Towers fell, has been attributed by investigators to fires caused by debris from the North Tower. However, conspiracy theorists argue that its neat, symmetrical collapse resembles a controlled demolition. The Pentagon attack has also generated significant speculation. Some theorists question whether American Airlines Flight 77 actually hit the Pentagon, pointing to what they claim is a lack of aircraft debris, visible in initial photographs, and the relatively small hole in the building's exterior wall. They suggest that a missile or smaller aircraft might have been responsible for the damage, with Flight 77 being diverted or destroyed elsewhere. Flight 93, which crashed in Pennsylvania after passengers attempted to retake control from the hijackers, has generated theories about whether it was actually shot down by military aircraft. Some point to the scattered debris field and witness accounts of military jets in the area as evidence that the official story of passenger heroism might be incomplete. The timeline of events that day has also been scrutinized by conspiracy theorists. They question why military jets weren't scrambled more quickly, why certain air defense protocols weren't followed, and whether key government and military officials had advance knowledge of the attacks. The fact that President Bush continued reading to school children for several minutes after being informed of the attacks has been interpreted by some as evidence that he was unsurprised by the news. Financial irregularities have also been cited as suspicious. Theorists point to unusual trading activity in airline and insurance stocks in the days before the attacks, suggesting that some individuals might have had advance knowledge. The fact that Larry Silverstein had recently leased the World Trade Center and increased its insurance coverage has also attracted attention from conspiracy theorists. The psychological appeal of 9/11's conspiracy theories is complex and multifaceted. The attacks were so shocking and traumatic that some people find it easier to believe in a complex conspiracy than to accept that a small group of terrorists could have caused such devastation. There's also the cognitive dissonance of believing that America, with its advanced military and intelligence capabilities, could be successfully attacked by what many perceived as a relatively unsophisticated enemy. The theories also tap into existing distrust of government institutions and corporate power. For those already skeptical of government motives, the idea that 9/11 was orchestrated to justify unpopular wars and expand government surveillance powers fits into a broader narrative of government manipulation and deceit. However, the evidence supporting the official account of the September 11th attacks is overwhelming and has been corroborated by multiple independent investigations. The National Institute of Standards and Technology conducted extensive studies of the World Trade Center collapses, concluding that the buildings fell due to the combined effects of aircraft impact damage and the resulting fires, which weakened the steel structure. The collapse of Building 7 has been explained by investigators as the result of fires that burned uncontrolled for hours, causing thermal expansion and the failure of key structural elements. Computer simulations have shown how the progressive collapse could have occurred without the use of explosives. Physical evidence from all 4 crash sites has been extensively analyzed. Aircraft parts, DNA evidence from victims, and other forensic evidence consistently support the conclusion that commercial airliners were used in all 4 attacks. The phone calls made by passengers and crew members from the hijacked flights provide contemporaneous accounts that match the official timeline. The 9/11 Commission, composed of both Republicans and Democrats, conducted an exhaustive investigation involving over 2.5 million pages of documents, 1,200 interviews, and 19 days of public hearings. While the Commission found failures in intelligence sharing and preparedness, they found no evidence of government complicity in the attacks. Perhaps most importantly, the complexity and scope of the conspiracy that would be required to orchestrate such an attack internally would involve thousands of people across multiple government agencies, airlines, media organizations, and other institutions. The idea that such a massive conspiracy could be maintained without a single credible whistleblower or leaked document strains credibility. The persistence of 9/11's conspiracy theories also reflects the genuine trauma and grief experienced by a nation suddenly confronted with its vulnerability. In the face of such overwhelming loss and fear, the human mind seeks explanations, patterns, and someone to blame. Sometimes, complex conspiracy theories feel more comforting than the simple, terrifying truth that a small group of determined individuals can cause immense suffering. These theories also serve a psychological function in helping some people feel that they have special knowledge or understanding of events that others have missed. In a world where individuals often feel powerless in the face of global events, conspiracy theories can provide a sense of having uncovered hidden truths and regained some measure of control. As you contemplate this darkest chapter in recent American history, consider how trauma and fear can shape our perception of reality. The September 11th attacks revealed both the worst and best of humanity. The capacity for unspeakable evil and the courage of those who ran toward danger to help others. The first responders, the passengers of Flight 93, the ordinary people who became heroes that day. Their actions speak to the resilience of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable horror. The real conspiracy that day was the one carried out by 19 terrorists, who believed their cause justified the murder of innocent people. Their plot succeeded beyond their wildest dreams, not just in the immediate destruction they caused, but in the lasting fear, division, and suspicion that followed. Yet America endured, as it always has. The towers fell, but the nation stood. The attacks aimed to destroy American values and way of life, but instead revealed their strength. In the face of hatred, Americans showed compassion. In the face of fear, they showed courage. In the face of division, they showed unity. As we prepare to journey into our next mystery, let your mind rest on the resilience of the human spirit and the power of truth to eventually prevail over speculation and fear. Sometimes the most important response to tragedy isn't to seek complex explanations, but to honor the memory of those lost and work to build a better, more understanding world. The echoes of September 11th continue to shape our world today, but perhaps the most fitting memorial to those who died is not endless speculation about hidden conspiracies, but continued commitment to the values of openness, truth, and human dignity that the attackers sought to destroy. Chapter 4: Area 51 and the Search for Truth Among the Stars Deep in the Nevada Desert. Approximately 83 miles northwest of Las Vegas lies one of the most secretive and mysterious locations on Earth, known officially as Groom Lake or Homey Airport. This facility has captured the imagination of conspiracy theorists, UFO enthusiasts, and science fiction fans for decades under its more famous designation, Area 51. As you settle deeper into relaxation, let your mind wander to the vast expanse of the Nevada desert. Picture endless stretches of sand and scrub brush under a canopy of stars so brilliant they seem within reach. In this remote wilderness, where the silence is so complete you can hear your own heartbeat, the US government operates one of its most classified facilities. The very isolation that makes it perfect for secret military testing also makes it the perfect breeding ground for extraterrestrial speculation. Area 51's association with UFOs and alien technology began in earnest in the 1980s, though rumors had circulated for decades. The facility was established in 1955 as a testing site for the U-2 spy plane, one of the most advanced aircraft of its time. The secrecy surrounding the base was necessary. The U-2 could fly at altitudes of 70,000 feet, far higher than any known aircraft at the time, and its missions over the Soviet Union during the Cold War required absolute secrecy. But secrecy, as we know, breeds speculation. Throughout the 1950s and 1960s, commercial airline pilots and civilians began reporting strange aircraft in the Nevada skies. What they were actually seeing were test flights of cutting-edge military aircraft, including the U-2, the SR-71 Blackbird, and later, stealth technology prototypes. These aircraft, with their unusual shapes and flight characteristics, looked unlike anything the public had ever seen. The modern UFO mythology surrounding Area 51 was largely popularized by Bob Lazar, a man who claimed to have worked at a facility called S4, allegedly located near Area 51. In 1989, Lazar appeared on Las Vegas television claiming that he had been employed to reverse engineer alien spacecraft recovered by the US government. According to Lazar, these craft used a mysterious element called Element 115 for propulsion and could manipulate gravity itself. Lazar's claims captured public imagination like wildfire. He described alien technology that was decades ahead of human capability, spoke of craft that could accelerate at impossible speeds without affecting their occupants, and claimed that the government had been secretly studying extraterrestrial technology since the 1940s. His story suggested that many of the technological advances of the 20th century might have actually been reverse-engineered from alien spacecraft. The appeal of Area 51 alien theories extends far beyond mere curiosity about secret military projects. They tap into humanity's deepest questions about our place in the universe. Are we alone? Have we been visited by beings from other worlds? And if so, what might that mean for our understanding of ourselves and our cosmic significance? The Roswell incident of 1947, though geographically distant from Area 51, became linked in popular culture to the Nevada facility. The story goes that a UFO crashed near Roswell, New Mexico, and that the debris and possibly alien bodies were transported to secret facilities like Area 51 for study, while the Roswell incident was actually the crash of a classified military balloon project. The mythology surrounding it became intertwined with Area 51 lore. Popular culture has played a significant role in cementing Area 51's place in UFO mythology. Movies like Independence Day showed alien technology being studied at Area 51. The X-Files television series frequently referenced the facility. Video games, books, and documentaries have all contributed to the base's legendary status. The phrase, "the truth is out there," became synonymous with the search for evidence of government cover-ups and alien visitation. The psychology behind Area 51 conspiracy theories reveals several fascinating aspects of human nature. There's the appeal of forbidden knowledge, the idea that somewhere in the Nevada desert, government scientists are studying technology that could revolutionize human civilization. There's also the comfort of believing that human technological progress isn't entirely our own achievement, that perhaps we've had help from more advanced civilizations. For many believers, the existence of alien technology at Area 51 provides hope for solutions to humanity's greatest challenges. Advanced propulsion systems could solve energy problems and enable interstellar travel. Alien materials and manufacturing techniques could revolutionize medicine and industry. In essence, the Area 51 mythology represents humanity's technological dreams and aspirations projected onto extraterrestrial visitors. The secrecy surrounding Area 51 has only fueled these theories. For decades, the US government refused to even acknowledge the facility's existence. Maps showed empty desert where satellite images clearly revealed buildings, runways, and aircraft. This official denial, while necessary for legitimate national security reasons, created an information vacuum that conspiracy theories rushed to fill. Warning signs around Area 51's perimeter threatened deadly force against trespassers, and the restricted airspace above the facility is among the most heavily defended in the world. This level of security, necessary for protecting genuinely classified military aircraft development, seems excessive to many observers if the base is merely testing conventional weapons systems. However, the reality of Area 51, while classified, is far more mundane than alien spacecraft reverse engineering. The facility has been used to test virtually every major classified aircraft in the US inventory. The U-2 SR-71, F-117 stealth fighter, and B-2 stealth bomber all underwent development and testing at Groom Lake. The unusual flight characteristics and appearances of these revolutionary aircraft explain many UFO sightings in the Nevada desert over the decades. In 2013, the CIA officially acknowledged Area 51's existence for the first time, releasing documents that confirmed its role in developing the U-2 spy plane. These documents also acknowledged that CIA officials were aware that U-2 test flights were responsible for many UFO sightings during the 1950s and 1960s, but chose not to reveal this information to protect the classified program. The scientific search for extraterrestrial life continues through legitimate channels like the SETI Institute, which uses radio telescopes to listen for signals from alien civilizations. Recent discoveries of exoplanets in the habitable zone around other stars have increased optimism that life might exist elsewhere in the universe. However, the vast distances between stars make visitation by alien spacecraft extraordinarily unlikely with any known physics. Bob Lazar's claims, meanwhile, have been thoroughly investigated and found lacking in credible evidence. His educational and employment background couldn't be verified, and his descriptions of alien technology contain numerous scientific impossibilities. Element 115, which he claimed was used in alien propulsion systems, was later synthesized in laboratories, but proved to be highly unstable and radioactive. Nothing like the stable material Lazar described. As you contemplate the mysteries of Area 51 and our search for extraterrestrial life, consider what these theories reveal about human nature. Our fascination with UFOs and alien visitation speaks to our deepest desires to connect with something greater than ourselves, to believe that we're part of a larger cosmic community. The secrecy surrounding military facilities like Area 51, while necessary for national security, also feeds our natural curiosity about the unknown. In the absence of information, the human imagination fills the void with possibilities both wonderful and terrifying. Perhaps the real truth about Area 51 is that it represents humanity's remarkable ability to push the boundaries of technology and achievement, even without extraterrestrial assistance. The night sky above the Nevada desert remains filled with wonders. Not alien spacecraft, but the genuine mysteries of our universe. Billions of stars, countless planets, and the possibility that somewhere among them, life has evolved and perhaps even achieved intelligence. The search for extraterrestrial life continues, but it's being conducted by scientists with radio telescopes and space probes, not by reverse engineering crashed flying saucers in hidden desert facilities. As we prepare to explore our next mystery, let your gaze turn upward to the stars visible through your window, or simply imagine them twinkling in the infinite darkness above. Whether or not we're alone in the universe remains one of humanity's greatest unanswered questions. But perhaps the search for that answer tells us more about ourselves than any alien visitor ever could. The truth may indeed be out there, but it's likely to be found not in the Nevada desert, but in the patient work of scientists studying the cosmos, listening for signals from distant worlds, and gradually expanding our understanding of the universe and our place within it. Chapter 5. The Flat Earth, when ancient beliefs meet modern skepticism. In an age when we can see photographs of Earth from space, when GPS satellites guide our every journey, and when we can video call someone on the opposite side of the globe, a curious phenomenon has emerged. A growing number of people have begun to question one of humanity's most fundamental scientific understandings: the shape of our planet. The flat Earth theory, once relegated to the dustbin of medieval misconceptions, has experienced an unexpected renaissance in the digital age. As you sink deeper into comfort, Let your imagination transport you to a time before telescopes and satellites, when the horizon seemed like the edge of the world and the earth felt flat beneath your feet. For our ancestors, this perception made intuitive sense. When you stand in an open field or gaze across the ocean, the world does appear flat, stretching endlessly to a distant horizon. It's only through careful observation, measurement, and reasoning that humans gradually discovered the spherical nature of our home planet. The ancient Greeks, particularly Eratosthenes around 240 BCE, not only proved that Earth was round but even calculated its circumference with remarkable accuracy. They observed that ships disappeared hull first over the horizon, that the Earth cast a round shadow on the moon during lunar eclipses, and that different stars were visible at different latitudes. These observations could only be explained by a spherical Earth. Yet here we are, more than 2 millennia later, and the Flat Earth Society has thousands of members worldwide. Modern Flat Earth believers propose that our planet is actually a flat disk, with the North Pole at the center and Antarctica forming an ice wall around the perimeter. In their model, the Sun and Moon are small, local objects that circle above the flat plane, creating day and night cycles through their movement. The psychology behind modern Flat Earth belief is fascinating and complex. For many believers, it begins with a deep distrust of authority and institutions. They see the globe Earth as a massive conspiracy perpetuated by governments, space agencies, airlines, and educational systems worldwide. This conspiracy, they claim, is designed to hide humanity as true nature and keep us from understanding our real place in the universe. Daniel Shenton, who led the Flat Earth Society in the early 2000s, described the movement as being driven by a desire for empirical evidence and direct observation. Flat Earth believers often emphasize that they trust their senses and direct experience over what they see as abstract scientific theories. When they look around, they see a flat world, not a curved one. Mark Sargent, one of the most prominent modern Flat Earth advocates, describes the theory as the ultimate conspiracy. In his view, if the shape of the Earth itself has been misrepresented, then everything else we've been told becomes suspect. This perspective appeals to people who already feel alienated from mainstream institutions and scientific consensus. The Flat Earth model attempts to explain various phenomena through alternative mechanisms. Gravity, they argue, doesn't exist as described by science. Instead, the flat Earth is constantly accelerating upward at 9.8 meters per second squared, creating the sensation we interpret as gravitational pull. The Sun, they claim, is only about 3,000 miles above the Earth's surface and acts like a spotlight, illuminating different portions of the flat disk as it moves in circles above us. Seasonal changes, they suggest, occur because the Sun's circular path expands and contracts throughout the year. When the Sun travels in a smaller circle, summer in the northern regions, it spends more time over the center of the disk. When it travels in a larger circle, winter in the northern regions, it spends more time over the outer edges. Time zones, according to Flat Earth theory, exist because the Sun acts like a moving spotlight. As this celestial spotlight moves across the flat plane, it creates day and night in different regions. The fact that it's noon in New York when it's midnight in Tokyo is explained by the Sun being positioned over New York at that moment. One of the most challenging aspects for Flat Earth believers to explain is the existence of the Southern Hemisphere's seasons being opposite to those in the North. Their models struggle with phenomena like the midnight sun in Antarctica, where the Sun remains visible for 24 hours during the southern summer. These observations are easily explained by Earth's spherical shape and axial tilt, but require increasingly complex explanations in Flat Earth models. The movement has found fertile ground on social media platforms and video sharing sites, where charismatic speakers present their theories with confidence and conviction. These presentations often focus on picking apart specific aspects of mainstream science, rather than presenting a comprehensive alternative model. They question NASA's photographs of Earth from space, claiming they're computer-generated composites rather than actual photographs. Flat Earth believers often point to the lack of visible curvature. When viewing the horizon from ground level or even from commercial aircraft, they argue that if Earth were truly a sphere with a 25,000-mile circumference, we should be able to see obvious curvature from high altitudes. However, the mathematics of perspective shows that even from typical aircraft altitudes, the curvature would be subtle and difficult to detect without specialized equipment. The movement has also embraced certain biblical interpretations, with some believers arguing that ancient religious texts describe a flat Earth covered by a dome or firmament. This religious component adds another layer of motivation for some adherents, who see defending flat Earth theory as defending their faith against what they perceive as atheistic scientific materialism. Perhaps most remarkably, some flat Earth believers have attempted to conduct their own experiments to prove their theories. These range from launching homemade rockets to using lasers to measure the curvature of large lakes. Ironically, many of these experiments actually end up demonstrating Earth's curvature, though believers often find alternative explanations for their results. The Netflix documentary Behind the Curve captured one such moment when flat Earth researcher Patricia Steer conducted an experiment using a laser and boards with holes at precise heights across a body of water. If the Earth were flat, the laser should shine straight through all the holes. Instead, the laser beam was blocked, exactly as would be expected if the Earth's surface curved downward over that distance. The persistence of flat Earth belief in the face of contradictory evidence reveals something profound about human psychology and the power of community and identity. For many believers, the flat Earth community provides a sense of belonging and special knowledge that can be more psychologically rewarding than accepting mainstream scientific consensus. There's also the appeal of being part of a small group that has uncovered a massive deception. This provides a sense of intellectual superiority and moral purpose that can be intoxicating. Believers often describe their conversion to flat Earth theory as an awakening or red-pilling experience that opened their eyes to broader deceptions. However, the evidence for Earth's spherical shape is overwhelming and comes from numerous independent sources and methods. Satellite imagery, GPS technology, international flights, ocean navigation, astronomy, physics, and simple geometry all consistently point to a spherical Earth. The conspiracy required to maintain a flat Earth deception would involve millions of people across every nation, profession, and time period, a level of coordination that strains credibility. Modern technology makes Earth's spherical nature increasingly undeniable. Anyone with a smartphone can use apps that depend on GPS satellites, which only work because they account for Earth's curvature and rotation. Time-lapse photography shows the rotation of star trails around celestial poles, a phenomenon that can only occur on a rotating sphere. The re-emergence of flat Earth belief in the internet age serves as a cautionary tale about the power of online echo chambers and the importance of scientific literacy. When people can easily find communities that confirm their existing beliefs and filter out contradictory information, even the most fundamental scientific facts can be called into question. As you contemplate this curious revival of ancient misconceptions, consider what it reveals about human nature and our relationship with knowledge and authority. The Flat Earth movement, while scientifically unfounded, speaks to genuine human needs for community, purpose, and the feeling of possessing special insight into hidden truths. Perhaps the most important lesson from the flat Earth phenomenon is not about the shape of our planet, which has been established beyond reasonable doubt for centuries, but about the importance of critical thinking, scientific literacy, and the courage to change our minds when presented with compelling evidence. Our Earth, this pale blue dot, suspended in the cosmic darkness, is indeed a sphere, a beautiful, fragile globe spinning through space, carrying all of human history and everyone we've ever known. The wonder of our spherical world, with its diverse climates, its protective magnetosphere, and its perfect distance from the sun, is far more remarkable than any flat disk could ever be. As we prepare to explore our next mystery, let your mind embrace the true wonder of our spherical planet, not as a deception to be uncovered, but as a magnificent cosmic home that has nurtured life for billions of years and continues to inspire awe in all who take the time to truly understand its nature. Chapter 6. Chemtrails. Reading messages in the sky. Look up on any clear day when aircraft pass overhead, and you'll likely see them. Long white trails stretching across the blue expanse, sometimes persisting for hours, sometimes dissipating quickly. To most people, these are simply contrails. Condensation trails formed when hot jet exhaust meets the cold air of high altitudes. But to a growing number of observers, these trails represent something far more sinister. A deliberate program of atmospheric spraying designed to control weather, populations, or both. As you settle into the gentle rhythm of relaxation, let your mind drift upward to the vast cathedral of sky above us. Imagine lying on your back in a meadow on a perfect spring day, watching clouds drift by like sailing ships on an azure sea. In this peaceful scene, the occasional passage of an aircraft leaves its temporary mark, a reminder of humanity's conquest of the skies and our ability to traverse continents in mere hours. The term chemtrails is a portmanteau of chemical trails, coined by those who believe that some aircraft trails are not the natural byproduct of jet engines, but deliberate chemical releases. This theory suggests that government agencies, in cooperation with airlines or through special aircraft, are spraying various substances into the atmosphere as part of classified programs with purposes ranging from weather modification to population control. The chemtrail theory gained significant traction in the 1990s, coinciding with the rise of the internet and the ability for like-minded individuals to connect and share observations. Believers point to several phenomena they consider suspicious. Trails that persist for hours rather than dissipating. Quickly grid-like patterns of trails across the sky, and trails that appear to start and stop mid-flight, suggesting they can be turned on and off at will. Proponents of the chemtrail theory propose various explanations for why such a program might exist. Some suggest it's an attempt at geoengineering, deliberately modifying Earth's climate to counteract global warming by reflecting sunlight back into space. Others propose more nefarious purposes: population reduction through the introduction of harmful chemicals, mind control through psychoactive substances, or the deliberate weakening of human immune systems. Weather modification is often cited as a primary motive. Believers point to historical programs like Operation Popeye during the Vietnam War, where the US military used cloud seeding to extend the monsoon season over enemy territory. They argue that if governments were willing to modify weather for military purposes, then they're likely doing it for other reasons now. The visual evidence that chemtrail believers cite often centers on the behavior and appearance of the trails themselves. They note that some trails spread out to form thin, wispy clouds that can cover large portions of the sky. In their view, normal contrails should dissipate quickly in dry air. So any trail that persists must contain additional chemicals designed to linger in the atmosphere. Believers often document what they see as unusual flight patterns, aircraft flying in parallel lines or crossing patterns that create grid-like formations across the sky. They interpret these patterns as evidence of systematic spraying rather than normal air. Traffic following established flight corridors. The composition of alleged chemtrails is a matter of significant speculation within the community. Common theories include aluminum oxide to reflect sunlight, barium compounds for weather modification or atmospheric heating, and various biological agents. Some believers claim to have had rainwater or soil tested after heavy spraying days and found elevated levels of these substances. The psychological appeal of chemtrail theories touches on several deep-seated human concerns. There's the fear of being subjected to unknown chemicals without consent, a violation of bodily autonomy that resonates with anyone who values personal freedom. The idea that something might be happening literally over our heads, beyond our control or knowledge, taps into feelings of powerlessness in an increasingly complex world. The theory also provides a simple explanation for various health problems and environmental changes. Believers often attribute increases in respiratory illness, neurological disorders, and even autism to chemtrail exposure. The visual evidence seems clear and accessible, unlike many conspiracy theories that require specialized knowledge to evaluate. Anyone can look up and see aircraft trails. Environmental concerns lend additional credibility to chemtrail theories for many believers. In an era of climate change and environmental degradation, the idea that governments or corporations might be conducting atmospheric experiments without public knowledge doesn't seem far-fetched. The documented history of unethical government experiments on unwitting populations provides a precedent that believers cite as evidence that such programs are possible. However, atmospheric scientists and aviation experts have thoroughly studied contrail formation and persistence. The behavior of contrails depends entirely on atmospheric conditions at flight altitude. In cold, humid conditions, contrails can persist for hours and spread out to form cirrus-like clouds. In dry conditions, they dissipate quickly. This explains the day-to-day variation in trail persistence that chemtrail believers find suspicious. The formation of contrails follows well-understood physics. When hot jet exhaust, containing water vapor and carbon dioxide, meets extremely cold air at high altitudes, typically -40 degrees Fahrenheit or colder, the water vapor condenses and freezes around particles in the exhaust, forming ice crystals. These crystals can persist and grow under the right atmospheric conditions, just as natural clouds do. The grid-like patterns that believers cite as evidence of deliberate spraying are easily explained by standard aviation practices. Commercial aircraft follow established flight corridors and approach patterns that naturally create geometric arrangements when viewed from the ground. Air traffic control systems route aircraft along specific paths for safety and efficiency, which can create the appearance of systematic patterns. Modern aircraft engines are also more efficient and fly at higher altitudes than their predecessors, leading to more persistent contrails. The increase in air traffic over recent decades means there are simply more aircraft creating more trails, making persistent contrails more common and noticeable than in previous generations. Scientific analysis of air and precipitation samples in areas of heavy air traffic consistently shows that the composition matches what would be expected from normal aircraft exhaust and atmospheric processes. While jet exhaust does contain various compounds, These are the expected byproducts of fuel combustion, not evidence of additional chemical spraying. The atmospheric scientist community has repeatedly addressed chemtrail claims through peer-reviewed research and public explanations. Organizations like the American Meteorological Society and NOAA have published detailed explanations of contrail formation and persistence. Independent researchers have found no evidence of systematic chemical spraying beyond the normal byproducts of aviation. Perhaps most telling is the practical impossibility of maintaining such a massive secret program. The chemtrail theory would require the cooperation of aircraft manufacturers, airlines, pilots, mechanics, air traffic controllers, meteorologists, and government agencies across multiple countries. The logistics of retrofitting commercial aircraft or operating secret fleets on the scale suggested would be extraordinarily difficult to hide. Pilots and aviation professionals, who would necessarily be involved in any such program, have consistently denied knowledge of chemical spraying operations. Commercial pilots undergo regular health examinations and would likely notice health effects if they were routinely exposed to toxic chemicals in their workplace. The geoengineering research that does exist is conducted openly by universities and research institutions, with published papers and public discussions about the potential benefits and risks of various atmospheric modification techniques. If governments wanted to pursue large-scale geoengineering, there would be no need for secrecy. It could be conducted as an acknowledged response to climate change. As you contemplate the sky above and the trails that cross it, consider what the chemtrail phenomenon reveals about our relationship with the atmosphere around us. The air we breathe connects us all, and concerns about its purity and composition are both natural and important. The history of air pollution and environmental degradation gives us every reason to remain vigilant about what enters our shared atmosphere. Yet the chemtrail theory also demonstrates how our pattern-seeking minds can find conspiracy where simpler explanations suffice. The trails we see overhead are indeed artificial. They breathe a visible sign of our technological civilization's conquest of the skies. But they represent human ingenuity and the miracle of flight, not sinister plots. The real atmospheric challenges we face are well documented and studied openly. Climate change, air pollution, ozone depletion, and the environmental impacts of aviation. These challenges require serious attention and action, but they're being addressed through transparent scientific research and public policy debates, not secret spraying programs. Perhaps the most important message from the chemtrail phenomenon is about the value of scientific literacy and critical thinking. When we understand the basic physics of contrail formation, the patterns of air traffic, and the realities of atmospheric science, the mystery dissolves into comprehensible natural processes. The sky above us remains a source of wonder, not because of hidden chemical programs, but because of the incredible complexity of atmospheric physics, the beauty of cloud formation, and the marvel that we can send metal tubes filled with people soaring through the thin air at 35,000 feet. Every contrail is a testament to human achievement, a temporary sketch drawn across the blue canvas of sky. As we prepare to explore our next mystery, let your gaze linger on the heavens above. Whether you see contrails or chemtrails, the sky remains one of nature's greatest theaters, where the dance of weather, light, and human technology creates an ever-changing display of beauty and wonder. Sometimes the most profound mysteries are hiding in plain sight, waiting for scientific understanding to reveal their elegant simplicity. Chapter 7: The Illuminati and the New World Order. Shadows of power in a connected world in the quiet hours of the night. When most of the world sleeps, some believe that the true rulers of our planet gather in secret chambers, plotting the course of human civilization. They speak of an ancient order, a shadowy organization that has supposedly guided world events from behind the scenes for centuries. The Illuminati, a name that whispers of hidden knowledge, secret symbols, and ultimate power, has become perhaps the most enduring conspiracy theory of the modern age. As you settle deeper into the embrace of sleep, let your mind wander through history's corridors of power. Picture the grand palaces of kings, the marble halls of government, the gleaming towers of finance and commerce. In these spaces where decisions are made that affect millions of lives, some see not the messy reality of competing interests and human ambition, but the careful orchestration of a master plan centuries in the making. The historical Illuminati was indeed real, though far different from the omnipotent organization of conspiracy theory. Founded on May 1st, 1776, in Bavaria by Adam Weishaupt, a professor of law, the Order of the Illuminati was a secret society dedicated to Enlightenment ideals. Weishaupt envisioned an organization that would promote reason, secularism, and equality, radical concepts in the monarchical and religiously dominated Europe of the 18th century. The original Illuminati attracted intellectuals, politicians, and progressive thinkers who sought to reform society through education and moral improvement. They criticized religious influence over public life, opposed superstition, and advocated for the rights of women and the abolition of monarchy. Members used pseudonyms and secret rituals, partly for protection against persecution and partly following the traditions of other secret societies like the Freemasons. However, the historical Illuminati's influence was limited and brief. By 1785, just 9 years after its founding, the Bavarian government had banned all secret societies, including the Illuminati. The organization dissolved, its membership scattered, its papers confiscated. What survived was not the society itself, but the idea of the Illuminati, a concept that would prove far more powerful and enduring than the original organization. The modern conspiracy theory of the Illuminati bears little resemblance to Weishaupt's Enlightenment-era society. Today's theorists describe a vast, multi-generational conspiracy involving the world's most powerful families, politicians, business leaders, and celebrities. This modern Illuminati allegedly controls global finances, orchestrates wars, manipulates elections, and works toward establishing a single world government known as the New World Order. The appeal of Illuminati conspiracy theories lies partly in their comprehensiveness. Rather than explaining individual events as isolated conspiracies, the Illuminati theory provides a unified explanation for seemingly unrelated phenomena. Economic crises, political upheavals, technological changes, and cultural shifts all become part of a grand design being executed by hidden puppet masters. Believers often point to symbols and imagery as evidence of Illuminati influence. The Eye of Providence appearing on the US dollar bill pyramid, symbols in corporate logos, occult imagery in music videos and award shows. All are interpreted as signs that the Illuminati continues to operate and signals its presence to those who know how to look. The entertainment industry receives particular scrutiny from Illuminati theorists. Pop stars and actors are often accused of being Illuminati members, with their success attributed not to talent and hard work, but to participation in secret rituals and submission to hidden masters. Music videos and performances are analyzed for hidden symbolism. Hand gestures are interpreted as secret signs, and sudden deaths or career changes are attributed to conflicts with Illuminati handlers. The New World Order component of the theory suggests that the Illuminati's ultimate goal is the establishment of a single world government. This global authority would supposedly eliminate national sovereignty, control all economic activity, and reduce the world's population to more manageable levels. Proponents see evidence of this agenda in international organizations like the United Nations, World Economic Forum, and various trade agreements. Financial control is often cited as the Illuminati's primary mechanism of power. Conspiracy theorists point to powerful banking families, central banking systems, and international financial institutions as tools of Illuminati control. They argue that by controlling the creation and flow of money, this secret organization can manipulate entire economies and governments. The psychological appeal of Illuminati theories is multifaceted and profound. In an increasingly complex world where global events seem to unfold according to incomprehensible patterns, the idea of secret puppet masters provides a comforting sense of order. If there's someone in control, even malevolent control, then the world isn't simply chaotic and random. There's also the appeal of special knowledge. Believing in the Illuminati conspiracy makes one part of an enlightened minority who sees through the deceptions that fool the masses. This provides a sense of intellectual superiority and moral purpose that can be deeply satisfying. The believer becomes a hero in their own narrative, fighting against hidden oppression. The theory also offers scapegoating opportunities. Complex problems with multifaceted causes can be attributed to the deliberate actions of identifiable villains. Economic inequality, political corruption, social decay, all become the result of Illuminati machinations, rather than the complex interplay of historical, technological, and social factors. Religious elements often interweave with Illuminati theories, particularly in Christian interpretations that see the organization as serving satanic purposes. The symbols associated with the Illuminati, eyes, pyramids, pentagrams, are interpreted through religious lenses as signs of demonic influence. This adds a spiritual dimension to the conspiracy that makes it feel like a cosmic battle between good and evil. However, the practical challenges facing any real Illuminati-style conspiracy are enormous. The theory requires unprecedented levels of coordination across diverse industries, cultures, and political systems. Maintaining secrecy among thousands or millions of participants across generations would be virtually impossible, especially in our age of digital communication and whistleblowing. The supposed evidence for Illuminati control often crumbles under scrutiny. Symbols that appear meaningful to conspiracy theorists usually have mundane historical explanations. The Eye of Providence on the dollar bill, for example, was a common symbol in 18th century American iconography, representing divine guidance, not secret society control. The entertainment industry's use of occult or mysterious imagery is better explained by marketing and artistic considerations than secret allegiances. Mysterious symbols grab attention, provoke discussion, and generate publicity, all valuable commodities in the attention economy of modern media. Real power in the modern world is more visible and documented than Illuminati theories suggest. Wealthy individuals and corporations do indeed wield enormous influence, but they do so through legal means, lobbying, campaign contributions, think tanks, and media ownership. This influence is concerning and worthy of scrutiny, but it operates largely in the open rather than through secret societies. International cooperation on economic and political issues does exist, but it occurs through transparent institutions with public meetings, published documents, and democratic oversight mechanisms. The challenges of achieving coordination, even on obvious shared interests, like climate change or pandemic response, demonstrate how difficult true global conspiracy would be. The persistence of Illuminati theories in the internet age has been amplified by social media algorithms that create echo chambers and by the democratization of media production that allows anyone to create convincing-looking documentaries or websites supporting their theories. The volume of available evidence can seem overwhelming, even when each individual piece lacks credibility. Perhaps most importantly, focusing on imaginary Illuminati conspiracies can distract from real concentrations of power and influence that deserve public attention. Corporate consolidation, regulatory capture, political corruption, and economic inequality are genuine challenges that require serious analysis and action, not speculation about secret societies. The original Illuminati's ideals, reason, education, equality, and transparency in government, remain relevant today. Ironically, the conspiracy theories that bear their name often promote the opposite: suspicion over evidence, secret knowledge over open inquiry, and simplified explanations over complex understanding. As you contemplate the shadows and whispers of hidden power, consider what the Illuminati phenomenon reveals about human nature and modern society. Our desire to find patterns and meaning in complex events is both a strength and a potential weakness. The same cognitive abilities that help us navigate the world can also lead us to see conspiracies where none exist. The real power structures in our world are complex, imperfect, and often problematic. But they're not the product of centuries-old secret societies. They emerge from the interaction of technological change, economic systems, cultural evolution, and human ambition. Understanding these real dynamics requires patience, study, and acceptance of complexity. Less dramatic than imagining secret puppet masters, but ultimately more useful for creating positive change. In the quiet darkness of night, as you drift towards sleep, let your mind rest on this truth. The world is neither controlled by benevolent hidden guardians nor malevolent secret societies. It's shaped by billions of individual choices, competing interests, historical accidents, and the slow evolution of human institutions. This reality is both more chaotic and more hopeful than any conspiracy theory. Chaotic because no one is truly in control. Hopeful because that means the future remains open to our collective influence. The symbols that surround us on currency, in architecture, in art, are not secret signals from hidden masters, but the accumulated cultural inheritance of human civilization. They remind us not of conspiracy, but of continuity, not of control, but of creativity, not of deception, but of our endless human desire to find meaning and beauty in the world around us. Chapter 8: COVID-19. When fear meets uncertainty in the early months of 2020. As the world watched an invisible enemy spread across continents, humanity faced one of its greatest challenges in living memory. The novel coronavirus, SARS-CoV-2, brought with it not only illness and death, but also unprecedented uncertainty, fear, and questions about the very nature of the threat we faced. In this atmosphere of confusion and rapidly changing information, alternative theories about the virus's origins, purpose, and true danger began to emerge and spread as quickly as the pathogen itself. As you settle into the peaceful rhythm of your breathing, transport your mind back to those early, uncertain days of the pandemic. Remember the strange emptiness of cities under lockdown, the eerie silence where once there had been bustling crowds, the masked faces that became our new normal. In this surreal landscape, where the familiar world seemed to have shifted overnight, it's perhaps not surprising that many people began to question the official narrative of what was happening. The COVID-19 conspiracy theories that emerged were diverse and often contradictory, but they shared common themes: distrust of official explanations, suspicion of government motives, and the belief that the pandemic was somehow orchestrated or manipulated for hidden purposes. These theories ranged from claims about the virus's artificial origin to suggestions that the entire pandemic was an elaborate hoax designed to control populations and concentrate power. One of the most persistent theories concerned the origins of the virus itself. While scientific consensus pointed to natural zoonotic transmission, the virus jumping from animals to humans, possibly through an intermediate host. Conspiracy theorists proposed that SARS-CoV-2 was deliberately engineered in a laboratory. Some suggested it was created as a bioweapon. Others claimed it was designed for population control, and still others argued it was released accidentally from research facilities. The Wuhan Institute of Virology, located in the same city where the outbreak was first identified, became a focal point for these theories. Conspiracy theorists pointed to the facility's research on coronaviruses and its proximity to the initial outbreak as evidence of laboratory origin. They questioned the timing of the virus's emergence and suggested that its characteristics, particularly its efficient human-to-human transmission, were too convenient to be natural. Some theories went even further, suggesting that the pandemic was deliberately orchestrated by powerful elites to achieve various goals. Proponents claimed that global leaders used the crisis to implement authoritarian controls, crash economies to benefit wealthy investors, force populations to accept experimental vaccines, or prepare the ground for a great reset of global economic and social systems. The rapid development of vaccines became another source of conspiracy theories. Skeptics questioned how effective vaccines could be developed in less than a year when traditional vaccine development typically takes many years. They suggested that the vaccines were untested, dangerous, or contained hidden ingredients designed to harm or control recipients. Some claimed the vaccines contained microchips for tracking populations, while others suggested they were designed to alter human DNA. The public health measures implemented to combat the virus, lockdowns, mask mandates, social distancing, and vaccine requirements, were often interpreted through a conspiratorial lens, rather than seeing these as emergency responses to a genuine health crisis. Conspiracy theorists viewed them as pretexts for expanding government power and eroding civil liberties. They pointed to the economic devastation caused by lockdowns and questioned whether the cure was worse than the disease. The psychological appeal of COVID-19 conspiracy theories emerged from the perfect storm of fear, uncertainty, and information overload that characterized the early pandemic. The virus itself was invisible and poorly understood. The science was evolving rapidly. Official recommendations sometimes changed or contradicted each other, and the social and economic disruptions were unprecedented in most people's lifetimes. In this environment of chaos and confusion, conspiracy theories offered something valuable: certainty. Rather than accepting the uncomfortable reality that scientists and policymakers were making decisions based on incomplete and evolving information, conspiracy theories provided clear explanations with identifiable villains and comprehensible motives. The theories also served as psychological defense mechanisms against feelings of powerlessness. The pandemic made everyone acutely aware of human vulnerability and the limits of control over our environment. Believing that the crisis was deliberately orchestrated by human agents, however malevolent, was somehow more comforting than accepting that it was largely random and beyond anyone's control. Social media platforms became vectors for the rapid spread of conspiracy theories, often outpacing the spread of accurate information. Algorithms designed to maximize engagement inadvertently amplified sensational and emotionally charged content, including conspiracy theories. The democratization of information sharing meant that anyone could become a researcher or expert, creating and disseminating theories without the traditional gatekeepers of scientific peer review. The phenomenon of infodemic, the parallel spread of misinformation alongside the actual pandemic, became recognized as a serious public health challenge in its own right. Conspiracy theories weren't just abstract beliefs. They influenced behavior in ways that affected real-world health outcomes. People who believed the virus was a hoax were less likely to take protective measures. Those who believed vaccines were dangerous were less likely to get vaccinated. However, as time has passed and more evidence has accumulated, the scientific understanding of COVID-19 has become clearer. Genetic analysis of the virus shows characteristics consistent with natural evolution rather than laboratory engineering. The virus's genome contains features that would be unexpected in a designed pathogen, but are common in naturally occurring coronaviruses. The zoonotic origin theory remains the most scientifically supported explanation, though the exact pathway from animals to humans may never be fully determined. This uncertainty isn't unusual in emerging infectious diseases. The animal origins of many pathogens, including the original SARS virus, remain incompletely understood years after their emergence. The rapid vaccine development, rather than being evidence of conspiracy, demonstrated the remarkable capabilities of modern science when properly funded and coordinated. The speed was achieved not by cutting corners in safety testing, but by running trials in parallel, rather than sequentially by massive government investment that removed financial risk, and by building on decades of previous research on coronavirus and mRNA technology. The vaccines that emerged from this process have proven remarkably safe and effective. With billions of doses administered worldwide and serious adverse events remaining extremely rare, the monitoring systems established to track vaccine safety have been more robust than for any previous vaccine in history, providing unprecedented transparency about both benefits and risks. The public health measures implemented during the pandemic, while disruptive and economically costly, were based on established principles of infectious disease control. Similar measures had been used successfully in previous outbreaks and were recommended by public health experts worldwide based on scientific evidence about how respiratory viruses spread. The origins of SARS-CoV-2 remain a subject of legitimate scientific inquiry, with researchers continuing to investigate both natural and laboratory origin possibilities. However, this ongoing scientific uncertainty has been exploited by conspiracy theorists, who present their theories as equally valid to peer-reviewed research. The pandemic also revealed the complex challenge of communicating scientific information to the public during a crisis. Science is inherently uncertain and self-correcting, with understanding evolving as new evidence emerges. However, this normal process of scientific refinement was interpreted by some as evidence of deception or incompetence. The political polarization surrounding pandemic responses in many countries added another layer of complexity, with public health measures becoming symbols of broader political and cultural divisions. This politicization made it even more difficult to maintain focus on scientific evidence and public health considerations. As you contemplate this recent chapter in human history, consider what the COVID-19 conspiracy theories reveal about how we process fear and uncertainty. The pandemic confronted humanity with a genuine existential challenge that required rapid adaptation, scientific learning, and collective action. The conspiracy theories that emerged reflected very human needs for control, certainty, and simple explanations in the face of complex and frightening realities. The real lessons of the pandemic may have less to do with hidden conspiracies and more to do with human resilience, scientific capability, and the importance of institutions that can coordinate responses to global challenges. The development of effective vaccines in record time. The adaptation of healthcare systems to unprecedented demands, and the eventual containment of the virus represent remarkable achievements of human cooperation and ingenuity. Yet the pandemic also revealed vulnerabilities in our information systems, our social cohesion, and our ability to maintain trust in institutions during times of stress. The conspiracy theories that flourished during this period served as symptoms of deeper issues: inequality, political polarization, declining trust in expertise, and the challenges of navigating information in the digital age. The virus that emerged in late 2019 was neither a hoax nor a deliberate weapon, but something in some ways more sobering. A reminder of humanity's continued vulnerability to the natural world and our dependence on scientific knowledge and collective action to face shared challenges. The pandemic tested not only our immune systems, but our social and political systems, revealing both strengths and weaknesses that will likely shape how we prepare for future crises. As we drift toward sleep, let your mind rest on the remarkable resilience of the human spirit. Despite the fear, uncertainty, and division of the pandemic years, humanity adapted, learned, and ultimately began to overcome this invisible enemy. Healthcare workers risked their lives to care for the sick. Scientists worked tirelessly to understand the virus and develop treatments, and ordinary people made countless sacrifices to protect their communities. The conspiracy theories that emerged during this time, while misguided, reflected very human needs for understanding and control in the face of the unknown. Perhaps the most important lesson is not to judge those who sought alternative explanations, but to work toward building more resilient and trustworthy institutions, better scientific communication, and stronger social bonds that can withstand the tests that future challenges will surely bring. In the end, the story of COVID-19 is not one of secret plots or hidden agendas, but of a species learning to face a new threat with the tools of science, compassion, and cooperation that represent the best of human civilization. Chapter 9. Paul is dead. When music becomes mystery in the autumn of 1969, as the world was still reeling from the summer of Woodstock and humanity's first steps on the moon, a curious rumor began spreading across college campuses and radio stations. The whisper started small but grew into a phenomenon that would captivate millions. Paul McCartney, the beloved bassist and vocalist of the Beatles, was dead. Not just dead, according to the theory, but dead for years, secretly replaced by a lookalike, while the surviving Beatles continued their musical empire with an imposter. As you settle into the gentle embrace of sleep, let your mind drift back to the 1960s, to an era when 4 young men from Liverpool had become the most famous people on earth. Picture the screaming crowds, the revolutionary music, the cultural transformation that followed in their wake. The Beatles weren't just a band, they were a phenomenon that defined a generation. So when rumors of Paul's death began to surface, it felt like more than celebrity gossip. It felt like a crack in the foundation of reality itself. The Paul is dead theory, as it came to be known, suggested that Paul McCartney had died in a car accident in November 1966, sometime after the Beatles had stopped touring and retreated to the recording studio. According to the conspiracy, the remaining Beatles, John Lennon, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr, had decided to cover up his death to prevent mass hysteria among their fans and to protect their lucrative recording contracts. The replacement, believers claimed, was a Scottish musician named William Campbell, who had won a Paul McCartney lookalike contest, and was subsequently given plastic surgery to perfect his resemblance to the deceased Beatle. This imposter, known to theorists as full fake Paul, had been posing as Paul McCartney ever since, fooling the world while the real Paul lay buried in a secret grave. What made this conspiracy theory particularly fascinating was its reliance on clues supposedly hidden in the Beatles' music and album covers. Believers claimed that the surviving Beatles, racked with guilt over the deception, had been leaving subtle hints about Paul's death for those clever enough to notice them. These clues transformed Beatles' albums into elaborate puzzles, with every photograph, every lyric, and every musical arrangement potentially containing hidden messages. The Abbey Road album cover, released in 1969, became a cornerstone of the Paul is dead theory. The iconic image of the four Beatles crossing the street was interpreted as a funeral procession. John Lennon, dressed in white, represented the preacher or heavenly figure. Ringo, in black, was the undertaker. George, in casual clothes, represented the gravedigger. And Paul, barefoot and out of step with the others, represented the corpse. The fact that Paul was the only one without shoes was seen as particularly significant, as corpses are typically buried without footwear. Eagle-eyed theorists found additional evidence in the Abbey Road cover. A Volkswagen Beetle in the background bore the license plate 28IF, which believers interpreted as Paul's age if he had lived, 28 if he hadn't died. The fact that Paul held a cigarette in his right hand was significant because the real Paul was left-handed, further proving that this was an imposter. The Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band album from 1967 was similarly dissected for clues. The floral arrangement on the cover was said to spell out Paul when viewed from the right angle. The Beatles themselves appeared to be attending a funeral, with instruments laid out as if for a memorial service. A hand appeared over Paul's head in the photograph, which some interpreted as a blessing or a sign of death. Backward masking became another obsession for clue hunters. Playing Beatles songs in reverse supposedly revealed hidden messages about Paul's fate. Revolution 9 from the White Album, when played backward, was said to contain the phrase, "Turn me on, dead man." Other songs allegedly contained backward references to Paul's death, his replacement, or details about the cover-up. Lyrical analysis revealed even more supposed clues. In Strawberry Fields Forever, John Lennon appeared to say, "I buried Paul at the song's end," though he later claimed it was cranberry sauce. A Day in the Life contained the line, "He blew his mind out in a car," which was interpreted as a reference to Paul's fatal accident. Yesterday, recorded by Paul alone with orchestral backing, was seen as prophetic, a dead man singing about better times in the past. The theory gained massive momentum when Detroit DJ Russ Gibb received a call from a listener named Tom who outlined the clues and asked Gibb to investigate. Gibb spent 2 hours on air discussing the evidence, and the story exploded across the media. Other DJs picked up the story, newspapers ran articles, and amateur detectives began scouring Beatles albums for additional clues. The psychological appeal of the Paul is dead theory was multifaceted. At its core, it offered a way to make sense of the Beatles' evolution from the cheerful mop-tops of their early career to the more experimental, sometimes darker artists of their later albums. If Paul had died and been replaced, it would explain why the band's sound and image had changed so dramatically. The theory also tapped into a deep-seated fascination with hidden knowledge and secret messages. The idea that the Beatles were communicating in code, leaving clues for dedicated fans to discover, made listeners feel like they were part of an exclusive community with special insight. It transformed passive music consumption into active detective work. There was also an element of wish fulfillment in the theory. The Beatles had announced they would no longer tour in 1966, disappointing millions of fans worldwide. The Paul is dead theory provided a dramatic explanation for this decision and other changes in the band's behavior. It was more exciting to believe in elaborate cover-ups and hidden messages than to accept that their heroes were simply evolving as artists and people. The timing of the theory's emergence was significant. By 1969, the Beatles were clearly growing apart, both personally and musically. The recording sessions for their final albums had been marked by tension and disagreement. Fans who noticed this growing discord might have found comfort in the idea that the problems stemmed from one member being an imposter, rather than from natural human conflicts. However, the evidence for Paul's continued existence was overwhelming and easily verifiable. Paul McCartney himself eventually addressed the rumors in interviews, appearing on television and giving detailed responses that only the real Paul could have known. His intimate knowledge of Beatles history, his musical abilities, and his personal relationships all confirmed his identity. The supposed clues in Beatles albums, when examined objectively, revealed the power of human pattern-seeking behavior rather than deliberate messages. The Abbey Road funeral procession was simply for friends crossing a street. The photographer took several shots, and this was merely the best one. Paul was barefoot because it was a hot day and he had kicked off his sandals for comfort. The 28IF license plate belonged to a car that happened to be parked nearby and had nothing to do with the Beatles or their album. The backwards messages in songs were examples of pareidolia, the tendency to hear meaningful patterns in random noise. When people expect to hear certain words or phrases, their brains will often oblige by interpreting ambiguous sounds as those expected messages. The changes in Paul's appearance that conspiracy theorists cited as evidence of replacement could be explained by natural maturation, different hairstyles, weight fluctuations, and the simple fact that people change over time. Comparing photographs of Paul from 1963 to 1969 shows a normal progression from teenager to young adult, not evidence of a body double. The Beatles' musical evolution was also entirely natural and consistent with their known interests and influences. Their movement from pop songs to experimental music reflected their growing confidence as artists, their exposure to new musical styles, and their desire to push creative boundaries. No imposter or cover-up was necessary to explain this artistic growth. Most definitively, Paul McCartney's continued musical career after the Beatles' 1970 breakup demonstrated his authentic identity. His post-Beatles work with Wings and as a solo artist showed the same musical sensibilities, vocal characteristics, and left-handed bass playing that had characterized his Beatles contributions. An imposter would have been unable to maintain such consistency across decades of music making. The Paul is dead phenomenon also demonstrated how conspiracy theories can take on a life of their own through media amplification and social contagion. What might have remained a small rumor among a few fans exploded into a global phenomenon because it was inherently entertaining and mysterious. The story had all the elements of compelling fiction: death, deception, hidden clues, and beloved celebrities. As you contemplate this curious chapter in pop culture history, consider what the Paul is dead theory reveals about our relationship with celebrity and fame. The Beatles were so central to 1960s culture that the idea of losing one of them felt unthinkable to many fans. The theory provided a way to process the fear of such a loss, while maintaining the fantasy that the beloved band could continue unchanged. The phenomenon also illustrates the human love of mystery and puzzles. The supposed clues in Beatles albums gave fans a way to feel more connected to their musical heroes, as if they were part of an ongoing conversation rather than merely passive consumers. Even when the clues led nowhere, the search itself was enjoyable and meaningful to participants. Perhaps most importantly, the Paul is dead theory demonstrates the power of confirmation bias in shaping perception. Once believers accepted the premise that Paul was dead and had been replaced, they found evidence everywhere, in photographs, lyrics, musical arrangements, and even random coincidences. The theory became self-reinforcing, with each new clue strengthening believers' conviction. The real Paul McCartney, meanwhile, continued making music, raising a family, and living his life largely unbothered by the conspiracy theories about his death. In interviews, he has generally treated the Paul is dead theory with good humor, recognizing it as a testament to the Beatles' cultural impact rather than a serious threat to his identity. As we prepare to explore our final mystery, let your mind rest on the enduring power of music to inspire, mystify, and connect us across time and space. The Beatles' songs continue to bring joy to new generations of listeners, not because of hidden messages or elaborate conspiracies, but because of their timeless melodies, innovative arrangements, and universal themes of love, loss, and human experience. The Paul is dead theory, while unfounded, represents something beautiful about human nature. Our desire to find deeper meaning in the things we love, our fascination with mystery and hidden knowledge, and our reluctance to let go of the magic that certain artists bring into our lives. In the end, the real magic was never in the supposed clues or conspiracies, but in the music itself. For young men from Liverpool who changed the world with their songs and continue to inspire wonder and joy more than half a century later. Chapter 10. The Mandela Effect. When memory plays tricks on reality in the quiet corners of our minds, where memories live like old photographs in dusty albums, something strange occasionally happens. We reach for a recollection we recertain of a movie quote we VA heard 1,000 times the spelling of a childhood book, series, the color of a beloved character's outfit, only to discover that our memory doesn't match reality. This unsettling experience has been given a name, the Mandela Effect, and it has sparked one of the most peculiar conspiracy theories of the digital age. As you settle into the peaceful embrace of sleep, let your mind wander through the corridors of your own memory. Think of your earliest recollections, perhaps a favorite children's book, a classic movie scene, or a commercial jingle that played endlessly on television. These memories feel solid, reliable, unquestionable. Yet what if they weren't quite as trustworthy as they seem? The term Mandela Effect was coined by paranormal researcher Fiona Broome in 2009. Broome had vivid memories of Nelson Mandela dying in prison during the 1980s. She remembered news coverage of his funeral, his widow's grief, and the political upheaval that followed. But when Mandela was released from prison in 1990 and went on to become South Africa's president, Broome was confused and disturbed. How could she have such clear memories of events that never happened? When Broome shared her experience online, she discovered she wasn't alone. Hundreds of people shared similar memories of Mandela's supposed death in prison. This collective false memory became the namesake for a phenomenon that would soon encompass countless examples of shared misremembering. One of the most famous examples involves the children's book series, The Berenstain Bears. Many people vividly remember the bear's surname being spelled Berenstain with an E and an I. They recall seeing this spelling on book spines, in libraries, and in their childhood bedrooms. Yet the books have always been spelled Berenstain with an A. When confronted with this discrepancy, many people feel genuinely shocked and confused, insisting their memory couldn't be wrong about something so familiar. The movie Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs provides another compelling example. Many people distinctly remember the evil queen saying, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all. This phrase has become deeply embedded in popular culture, referenced in countless parodies and adaptations. However, in Disney's 1937 film, the Queen actually says, "Magic mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?" The difference seems small, but for those who remember mirror, it can be jarring to learn their recollection is incorrect. Star Wars fans have contributed one of the most discussed Mandela effects. Many people remember Darth Vader saying, "Luke, I am your father," during the climactic revelation scene in The Empire Strikes Back. This quote has been referenced and parodied endlessly in popular culture. However, Vader's actual line is, "No, I am your father," in response to Luke's claim that Vader killed his father. The misremembered version seems more direct and dramatic, which might explain why it feels more correct to many viewers. The Monopoly board game mascot, Rich Uncle Pennybags, often called the Monopoly Man, is another source of collective misremembering. Many people distinctly recall him wearing a monocle over one eye, a detail that would fit perfectly with his wealthy, aristocratic persona. However, the character has never worn a monocle. This false memory might be influenced by other wealthy character archetypes in popular culture, such as Mr. Peanut, who does wear a monocle. Forrest Gump's famous box of chocolates, quote, is often remembered as "life is like a box of chocolates." However, Tom Hanks actually says, "Life was like a box of chocolates," referring to something his mother used to say. The past tense versus present tense distinction might seem minor, but it represents another example of how our memories can subtly alter even well-known cultural touchstones. The phenomenon extends beyond entertainment to consumer products and geography. Some people remember the Fruit of the Loom logo featuring a cornucopia or horn of plenty behind the fruit, though no such logo has ever existed. Others recall New Zealand being positioned differently relative to Australia, or remember additional landmasses that don't appear on current maps. For most researchers and psychologists, the Mandela effect represents a fascinating window into how human memory actually works. Memory isn't like a video recording that perfectly preserves events. It's more like a constantly rewritten story that can be influenced by suggestion, emotion, and subsequent experiences. Each time we recall a memory, we potentially alter it slightly, incorporating new information or interpretations. Confabulation, the unconscious filling in of memory gaps with fabricated information, helps explain many Mandela effects. Our brains are constantly trying to make sense of incomplete information, and they'll create plausible details to fill in blanks. When we remember mirror instead of magic mirror, our brains might be supplying what seems like a more logical or familiar phrase. Social reinforcement plays a crucial role in strengthening false memories. When we hear others quote movie lines incorrectly or spell names wrong, these errors can overwrite our original memories. Popular culture parodies and references often perpetuate these mistakes, making them seem more authentic than the original sources. However, some people reject these psychological explanations and propose more exotic theories to account for the Mandela effect. The most dramatic of these suggests that we're reliving in alternate realities or parallel dimensions that occasionally merge or shift. According to this theory, people who remember Nelson Mandela dying in prison actually experienced that reality in a different timeline, before somehow crossing over to our current reality where he lived longer. Another supernatural explanation involves the idea of reality being artificially constructed or simulated, like in the movie The Matrix. Proponents suggest that updates or glitches in our simulated reality cause these discrepancies between memory and current facts. The Mandela effect, in this view, represents evidence that our reality isn't as stable or authentic as we assume. Some theorists propose that time travel or temporal manipulation by advanced beings or technologies could explain the phenomenon. They suggest that changes made to the past create ripple effects that alter details in the present, but some people retain memories from the original timeline. These exotic explanations, while creative and science fiction worthy, ignore simpler and more well-supported explanations rooted in cognitive psychology and neuroscience. The human brain's memory systems evolved for survival in small social groups, not for perfect recall of commercial product details or movie quotes in a media-saturated culture. Our memory systems are particularly vulnerable to certain types of errors. We're more likely to remember things that fit our expectations, that have emotional significance, or that we've encountered repeatedly. We're also influenced by leading questions, social pressure, and the mere passage of time. The internet age has created perfect conditions for the Mandela effect to flourish and spread. When someone posts about a false memory online, it can quickly find others who share the same misrecollection, creating virtual communities built around collective false memories. These communities can reinforce and elaborate on the initial error, making it seem more credible and widespread than it actually is. The phenomenon also reflects our discomfort with the fallibility of memory. We like to think our recollections are accurate and trustworthy, especially for things that seem important or familiar. When confronted with evidence that our memories are wrong, it can be psychologically easier to believe in alternate realities than to accept that our brains are imperfect recording devices. The Mandela effect has become a cultural phenomenon in its own right, spawning websites, forums, YouTube channels, and social media groups dedicated to cataloging and discussing examples. For many participants, it's less about believing in parallel dimensions and more about the fascinating experience of discovering shared false memories. As you contemplate the mysteries of memory and perception, consider what the Mandela effect reveals about the nature of human experience. Our memories aren't perfect archives of the past. They're living, breathing constructions that help us navigate the present and anticipate the future. They're influenced by emotion, suggestion, repetition, and social interaction. This imperfection isn't a bug in the human system, it's a feature. Our ability to update, revise, and reconstruct memories allows us to learn from experience, adapt to changing circumstances, and maintain psychological well-being in the face of trauma or loss. Perfect memory might actually be a disadvantage, preventing us from moving past negative experiences or adapting our worldview as we grow. The fact that many people share similar false memories speaks to our common human psychology and cultural influences rather than parallel dimensions. We're all susceptible to the same cognitive biases, exposed to similar media influences, and shaped by comparable social experiences. Perhaps the most important lesson from the Mandela effect is humility about our own perceptions and memories. If we can be collectively wrong about simple details like movie quotes or product logos, how much more careful should we be about trusting our memories of complex events, personal experiences, or historical details? This doesn't mean we should doubt everything or lose faith in our ability to understand reality. Instead, it suggests the value of external verification, multiple perspectives, and healthy skepticism about our own certainties. The most reliable knowledge comes not from individual memory or perception alone, but from careful observation, documentation, and the collective efforts of communities dedicated to truth-seeking. As we conclude our journey through the landscape of human curiosity and skepticism, let your mind rest on this final mystery, not of external conspiracies or hidden truths, but of the beautiful, flawed, endlessly fascinating nature of human consciousness itself. Our memories, imperfect as they are, contain the stories that make us who we are. They connect us to our past, guide our present, and shape our hopes for the future. The Mandela effect reminds us that reality is both more solid and more fluid than we usually imagine. The facts of the world remain constant. The books still spell Berenstain. Vader still says no, I am your father, and the Monopoly man still has no monocle. But our relationship with these facts is dynamic, influenced by psychology, culture, and the endless creativity of human memory. In the end, whether we remember things perfectly or imperfectly, we're all sharing this strange, wonderful experience of consciousness together. Our collective memories, true and false alike, weave the tapestry of human culture and connection. And in that sharing, in that common experience of being beautifully, imperfectly human, we find a truth more profound than any conspiracy theory could provide. Sweet dreams, fellow travelers in this grand adventure of perception and memory, doubt and discovery, mystery and understanding. Closing 3 to 5 minutes. As our exploration of mysteries and conspiracies draws to a close, take a moment to appreciate the journey we've taken together through the landscape of human curiosity and questioning. From the moon's silver surface to the depths of memory itself, we've wandered through the shadows and light of human understanding, examining the theories that capture our imagination and the truths that anchor our reality. These conspiracy theories, while often unfounded, reveal something beautiful about human nature. Our relentless desire to understand, to question, to seek meaning in the chaos of existence. They remind us that we are a species driven by curiosity, sometimes to our benefit and sometimes to our confusion, but always toward the endless frontier of knowledge and discovery. The questions that drive conspiracy theories: are we alone in the universe? Can we trust those in power? What really happened in history's great moments? How reliable are our own perceptions? Are not foolish questions. They are the fundamental inquiries that have driven human progress for millennia. The difference lies not in asking these questions, but in how we seek their answers. Science, evidence, and careful reasoning remain our best tools for understanding reality. Even when that reality is more complex, more uncertain, or less dramatic than the alternatives our imagination provides. As you drift into peaceful sleep, let your mind rest easy, knowing that the world, for all its genuine mysteries and real challenges, is also filled with the wonder of discovery, the beauty of understanding, and the endless possibility of learning something new. The truth, as the saying goes, is indeed out there, not hidden in shadows and conspiracies, but waiting to be discovered through patient observation, careful thinking, and the shared human endeavor of seeking knowledge. Sleep well, and dream of all the real mysteries still waiting to be solved.